Welcome back to the Manifest and Chill podcast. My name's Tracey Fatacek, and I am so honored to have the hormone girl here today. Tracey Willingham and I met in January, just a couple of months ago, at a retreat in Austin. And immediately, beyond her first name, I fell in love with her because she really speaks a language that a lot of women are talking about secretly in the back rooms, but they're not sharing out in public. And before I forget, she also has an incredible podcast called That's Not Very Ladylike, which I'm so fucking in love with that name. It's unbelievable. But I want to introduce you to Tracey Willingham. Tracey, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And why don't you tell my guests a little bit about your story and how you got to where you are today?
Absolutely. So I'm completely obsessed with you. Tracy walked in the room with this magical outfit on, and I was like, if we're not friends by the end of this event, I'm just done. So yeah, I was completely obsessed with you
Same.
when you came in the room. And then when you said your name, I'm like, it's meant to be. Tracy's are the best.
They are.
So, so I am a licensed social worker here in the state of Texas, and I had worked about 15 years in oncology social work. And two things happened. I started going through perimenopause, and I felt I know how to move through the healthcare system. That was my job. And so I was running into my own things. And then as I was talking to women, and then especially in some of the cancer types, the gynecological, there was no discussion of hormone health. It was kind of like, and I get it, like, let's get you through cancer and alive. Like, let's do
Right,
that.
right.
But like nobody was preparing women for the other side. And so they were left with all of this. And I was just getting so irritated. And I thought, that's it. I'm going to quit my job. And I'm going to get a couple certifications. So I got some certification in menopause and menstrual cycles and some basic women hormone health. And then I was like, I'm starting my business and I'm going in.
Yeah.
And so now here I am. I have my podcast. I do a little bit of one-on-one coaching here locally.
Mhm.
And then I have a membership that I spend a lot of my time working with women inside of.
Love that. And all of those things, of course, they'll be in the show notes with links to be able to connect with Tracey and have conversations with her. But I thought something you just shared with me I thought was really interesting is that you spoke about how you were working in the healthcare industry and oncology, which is a really sad and
Mhm.
can be very depressing environment anyway. And so many women are like the women that I coach and work with in my containers. They are the holders of everything together. They are carrying this emotional load or emotional labor on a consistent basis, just simply from being an entrepreneur or a CEO or a head or leader or matriarch of their family. Depending on if they're the lead, the glue or the bridge that brings all the friendships together and what have you. How did you come to the realization that it wasn't the weight of the career path that you were working through? It was actually something biologically that was happening to you. How did you navigate that with
I
yourself? How did you
think,
know?
I think a lot of what was happening was I had a huge team. I was responsible for 31 people.
Wow.
And and that's unusual for a nonprofit. Usually you don't get that big of a program team.
Yeah.
So, I think it was really when I started getting into hormone health that I started to identify some things that I hadn't heard. So I'd heard of estrogen and progesterone. Those were familiar. But then I started hearing more about cortisol and inflammation and blood sugar. And I started realizing so much, and a lot of that is self-induced pressure that I
Hmm.
put on myself because, I loved my 31 people. I knew them, I knew their families, and so I put that pressure on myself, which I think a lot of us do.
Yeah.
But nobody was really mentioning the correlation between like cortisol and some of these other things and what that was doing to my hormones. And so, fascinatingly enough, when I left my job, and there were a lot of things about my job I didn't enjoy. That was more from the administrative level. That was
Sure,
more
sure.
on me. But when I got home and I started to regulate again, I started to see a lot of my biological stuff come down. And
Uh,
that's when I started realizing like hormone health is more than just physical. Like hot flashes, brain fog, all of that is real and horrible. But I started to start to see that correlation of it's a lot more, and it's we're not talking about it. Just like you said earlier, we're not talking about a lot of this.
Yeah. Yeah. As our families generationally, it's not a conversation
Mm-mm.
unless you were really actually the child of a hippie in a lot of ways,
Yes,
as they
so
said,
true.
or somebody that was really kind of living on the fringe of society.
Yes.
And that is such a like 3% segment of who is out there in the world. And
Hmm.
so many times in the medical industry, and I'm not just talking about like the OBGYN or
Hmm.
the anything like that, or even just your regular GP. Just the medical industry in general is
Hmm.
run by men. And
Yes.
that's who kind of started it. So there's not a lot of voices there.
Mm-mm.
And I think one of the things that's coming through with what you're sharing is not so much about get on those hormones, girl. It's more about trust your intuition and
Yes.
that how you feel is real
Yes.
and honest. And
Yes.
there are you need to stop listening to the voices that are telling you
Hmm.
that, stick your head in the freezer or just
Right.
excuse yourself from the like breathe. Like I teach meditation and visualization and attention
Right.
setting and all of those things. I can walk you through a freak out breathwork session, but at the end of the day, that's not what's going to fix it. It's all these other
Yes.
levels and that's where your zone of genius is. Your genius is not in giving an HRT script out. Your
No.
genius is in completely, and I want to make sure that's clear because
Yeah.
there is so much hormone conversation, which is fantastic. But
Hmm.
your specialty is really about the cortisol and the emotional stuffing that
Yes.
we're doing that we don't even realize we're doing because women are so fucking capable.
Yes. And I think, I've had people like leave comments on my stuff that's like, you must really hate doctors. And I'm like, you know what? I don't even hate doctors because it's as everything in this country is it's systemic.
Yes.
And you can't be mad at a doctor who is trained from a book and told to ask these questions and prescribe this medicine. Like you can't be mad at them. And what's interesting is like when I refer some of my clients here locally to some of the doctors who are getting it right, it's like a 6 to 12 month wait.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's out there, but also, yeah, I had to correct someone the other day. I'm like, I'm not up against doctors. I'm up against a healthcare system.
Yeah.
And I'm going to teach you how to get through that. And it doesn't mean we're always going to get what we want. But I feel like if 30 million of us start showing up and saying the same things, systems get forced to adapt. And so that's where our power lies. And it may not even help our generation. This
Right.
might be like my nieces, they may get the benefit off this, but we got to start showing up and speaking up.
I agree with that whole, as you're saying all of that, I was thinking of, we're not, yes, we are banging our fists against the doors to get
Mhm.
attention. But what women do so beautifully, because that's like the masculine energy of us, but
Right.
also what we do so beautifully is the feminine. So we're banging on the doors, but we're also the water that
Hmm.
smooths the rock and
Yes.
breaks pathways through mountains.
Yes.
And that's feminine energy. And
Yes.
that's really where your genius falls into play, right?
Yes. And I mean, I realized I had to take a hard look at myself because for a while I was like, it's going to be easy. I say hormones, everybody comes. But then I started really like shut down what you think, Tracy, and listen. And I realized the women, especially locally, like as soon as I announced my business locally, women started throwing money at me and I'm like, what is happening? But what I realized is as they were showing up in those first few sessions, we were not diving into the hormone health immediately.
Yeah.
They were saying things like, I'm not okay. I don't snap like this, or I'm actually thinking about a divorce and I don't know why.
Yeah.
And I started thinking like, Tracy, why are you not leaning into your social work experience? But also like, yeah, women are not knocking on my door and saying, I have hormone issues. It's what the hell is happening?
Yeah.
And
I'm
it,
blowing my life up. Why?
yeah,
And I'm normally the most stable person in the room, right?
absolutely. I mean, and that's how I felt. Like I was snapping in meetings. I've never done that. Like I know how to professionally handle myself. And
Hmm.
here I am, and or like words were being dropped by board members, and I was taking it personally. And I'm like, this is not me. What is
Yeah.
happening? And so I think it was like slowing down and realizing I'm going through this, but also, yeah, people aren't knocking on my door saying, take my money. I have hormone problems. It's what is happening? So,
Well, and you have a phrase that you use about the when they're going through, and in air quotes, if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, if you're watching it on YouTube, you see them. Um, when they're going through this, you have a
yes.
phrase and a description of it, and you call it the second round of puberty, right?
Yes, absolutely. That's what I've been talking about with women. And I think like when I think back to my puberty, like I was so angsty. I can't believe my mom didn't just leave me on a corner somewhere because I had so much attitude. But it also was like a beautiful season. And my mom was kind of one of those women that was like, celebrate womanhood. So, I was like, okay, that's gross and corny. Stop. But it really was a time where I was pushing authority. I was trying to figure out what do I want? What do I look like? Who do I want to be? And I think what I'm started to realize as I'm working with women is like this is our second puberty and it's beautiful. Like it's just as horrible in some regards as our first puberty where you're like acne and what's happening to my face and my hair.
Yeah.
But it's also this beautiful time of where we're kind of for the first time ever stepping into our truths without apology, without worrying about does that make you comfortable? And it's shifting a lot in our lives. And that's where I think it's freaking women out. Like we are questioning long-term relationships. We're breaking up friendships. We're changing careers in our 40s. And that feels unstable. Like that's
Yeah.
not, we're adults. You're not supposed to do that.
Hmm.
And so these women reach this, and it's bigger than a midlife crisis. And so I've really been leaning in with women talking about we're in our second puberty, and
Yeah.
it's just as magical. It's a rite of passage. And, and now I understand when women used to say, when you get to your 50s, it's freeing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
now I get it. Now I understand we're going through our puberty.
And it's so interesting how you said that is and we talked about this a little bit earlier. When I was going through puberty, I'll use myself as an example,
Mhm.
my voice was actually not being heard at a time when you're exercising your voice. I always wanted to, the reward system in my environment was be a good girl, you get rewarded. Well, rewarding, being a good girl does not help you develop your voice.
Mm-mm.
So there are very many women that this second phase of puberty that could be
Hmm.
happening, some in their late 30s, 40s, and moving into the 50s. This could be where they're developing a voice that they
Hmm.
didn't even have the opportunity to have like a 5%er of.
Right.
And
Yes.
do you find like what is something, I always like to give it, what is something that they can do to help themselves? Because I, even
Sure.
as I coach
Yeah.
women on, I'll say, you can watch all over my socials and on my website. I'm going to teach you to follow your intuition as you build your business. So that way it's aligned to your energetic flows, not what you've been coached by the male coaches in the past that you've had, or the women that lean into masculine energy.
Hmm.
And, but you're there saying you may not know what your intuition is.
Yeah. Absolutely. This may be the first time in your life you've ever been given the space. And I think for a lot of women, that's what freaks them out, is it's like, whoa. And I think it's a new stage in our life where it's like, I mean, I even was convinced, so I named my membership Speak Up because I felt like I don't even know how to speak up. But what I realized, like when I was doing some reflection, is I had been trying to speak up in many rooms through my 20s. And it was either I was too concerned with like, how are you comfortable? Did I say something? Was I a bad girl? Did I say something wrong? As I did that reflection, I started to realize I've been speaking up my whole life, but also I wasn't giving that full permission to let it lie in the room. So there was always the after statements, and that's what I work with women a lot on is we open with things like, this might be a crazy idea, or correct me if I'm wrong. And I'm
Yeah.
like, we don't need to say that.
Yeah.
Like,
We don't.
say what's on your heart. And if it's silly, if it's ridiculous, you move through it. But what I have found most of the time, even silly, ridiculous statements have led to some of the most genius things. I've been in projects before where somebody said something so silly, and then it's like,
Yeah.
why don't we do that? That's actually like, let's push the agenda. So it's really, but yeah, I think for some of my women too, who are like, Tracy, I grew up in an environment where it was not safe. Like it could have been physical discipline or
Mm.
emotional abuse. What I start with those women on is, let's just start with awareness and get it out of your body. And even if that's as far as you can go in your whole life,
Yeah.
getting it out of your body is magic because it's sitting in here and it is impacting you every day. So if you can at least say it into the air, you actually move your cortisol, your inflammation, everything.
Mhm.
Just say it. And some of my clients that I've been working with, they're still there. They're not moving to telling their loved ones, and
Yeah.
they're just saying it into the air. And I'm like, we'll take it. That's progress.
That's rehearsal for the very
Hmm.
moments that show up. And
Yes.
I have always said words are wands. Whatever you
Yes.
say, you can bring to life. And just by practicing saying it, the
Hmm.
universe is listening to you. But more importantly, you are listening to
Yes.
you. And we've had, that's where the circle of friends come in. That's where the
Hmm.
coaches come in. That's where the support comes in, that the type of work that you do so beautifully and that I support women with is
Hmm.
we're not there to tell people what to do. We're there to create a space
Yes.
that they can make a million and one mistakes and
Hmm.
then come back at the next session or the next webinar or the next membership meeting or what have you, portals,
Hmm.
and make another million and one mistakes
Absolutely.
because it's when you break things in a healthy manner is
Yes.
when innovation shows up.
Yes. And I really try to spend some time around the idea of cost. So when I'm working with women, I'll say, what is the cost of you never getting to say what you wanted to say? And why is that okay? Why
Mhm.
does everybody else in the room get to say what they want to say and your thoughts, your whatever doesn't matter? And so that's where I spend a lot of my time is there is a great cost. Like, and
Yeah.
that cost is to yourself. Like, yes,
Mhm.
you could move society forward. You could be an amazing mentor, but you get one life.
Yeah.
Say what you want to say and say it with pride and get it out there. And you're gonna sweat and your voice is gonna crack those first times you do it. And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay because all of us have been there. And so, yeah, and some women will come back and be like, oh my gosh, Tracy, I stumbled over my words. I
Yeah.
stuttered. And I'm like, good, good, because what that tells me is your body felt it
Yeah. You
and it
shook
was
it out of
telling you
you.
like easy, safe, what are we doing? Because you've conditioned your body to stay
Yeah.
safe. And so
Oh,
that tells me you scared your body enough. And so I said, so that's gold, like 50 gold stars. Done.
yes. Yeah.
Check.
You've
Good job.
accomplished.
Yes.
You've
And I
accomplished.
think for women, they're shocked sometimes. They're like, what do you, I get 50 gold stars. And I'm like, yeah, that was all you had to do. Now
Yeah.
let's go to step two. And they're like, okay, I can do this. So yeah, I think it's, and it's funny. Like, it's like, I don't need to give you permission, but if you need permission,
Yeah.
I'll give it to you so you can move forward. Like, whatever you
Absolutely.
need, let's go. Let's get to work.
Absolutely. What's even it's like I think that, women can be so proficient at following rules
Mm-hmm.
and so
Mm-hmm.
proficient of taking those rules on as our own.
Yes.
And even though we didn't actually create the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're breaking the wheel and the
Yes.
chains from those rules, it's really controversial. Yes, to the
Mm-hmm.
outside environment, but there's an inner battle going on that isn't always shared. You'll
Mm-hmm.
find, some people on social media do it. Some
Right.
people, there'll be a great episode on television about a woman doing it, or, a
Mm-hmm.
movie will come out and it'll get all this fanfare and things will get exploded. And then all of a sudden it completely disappears and we never see it again.
Mm-hmm.
And so your work is in between. Like those things are fantastic. Let's have some great awareness in the public space, but
Right.
where the work is the most impactful
Hmm.
is in your world and the space that you provide for the women that you work with and
Yes.
coach.
Yeah,
And
and I was nervous at first, so I built some I call them coaches. I gave
yeah,
them names and faces because I was like, that's what I'd want to see. I don't want a robot.
yeah,
But getting women in those where they practice. So it's asking very tailored questions about why aren't you doing this? And then practicing it. So it's like, and they get to choose, like, I have a very dismissive partner who thinks I'm making this up. Okay, great. You need to have a conversation with them. Here's what you say.
I
And then
love.
it responds with those things you hear because that's exactly what you said earlier. It's a lot of it is practice. So get in there with those coaches, get in there and keep saying it and doing it. But
Mhm.
there's always I try to add some additional information too for women of like, when is it not safe? When do you stop? When do you say not today? And and even teaching
Yeah,
some basic communication skills of like, you don't have to, you can pause the conversation and say, I don't want to, we're going to meet again in 24 hours.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
we're both getting heated. So it's like teaching women the art of communication. And it's
Mm.
it's so fun for me. It's especially when women are like, I can say that. I'm like, you can say whatever you want.
I know.
Say it.
Exactly.
I don't care. I love it.
Yes,
Like,
exactly.
yeah, but
That's, I think
it's
that that's what we don't realize is that
yeah.
you can say, again, something I always say is we are women, we birth nations. Like we really don't have rules we have to sit to.
Nope.
Like if every single person on this planet came through a female, whether you had a child or not, you
Hmm.
still are a female and you have the ability to
Right.
make decisions based on what's best for you. And that's just human autonomy. That doesn't matter
Yes.
what sex you are.
Hmm.
It's really, or identify as. It's just autonomy because you are a human being and your number one goal is always to protect home base.
Yes. Yes. And that's really it. End of the day, women will be like, so what's the outcome? What are we working towards? And I'm like, it's super easy. It's trusting yourself.
Yeah.
It's trusting yourself that you have the right to feel, to say, to live, to disagree, all of those things. That's all it is. It's just because a lot of times we will put our trust as women in so many other people,
Yeah.
but the person we doubt the least, is ourselves. I had the most life-changing practice, and I'll do this with my coaching clients where they write down all the negative things, all the things they would never say out loud, but they say to themselves.
Mhm.
And then we get on the screen, and then I say, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to put Tracy, you are in front of every one of those statements.
Beautiful.
And they can't do it. They're like, well, I wouldn't say that to you. And I'm like, bam, work done. Like, if you wouldn't say it to me, why are you saying that to
Mhm.
yourself? And let's take it to court. That's one of my favorite social work theories. It's like they use it a lot in substance abuse and some other things. But the thing I love about it is they have a practice called take it to court. And so you have to make the case for what is factual and what is a story, what is emotions and all of this. And so a lot of times when I'm working with women, I'll be like, let's take it to court then. You said that you're this, this, and this. Prove it to me.
Yeah.
And I want to see evidence. I want to see facts. I want to hear stories of how horrible you are. And
Yeah.
most of the time they can't. And I'm like, so we're not,
Because they're not horrible people
yep,
and they're not awful people and they're not
no,
monsters.
no.
It's just, I had a former client that she enrolled in one of my very first masterminds. She was the first person to buy, first person on. We had a little
Mhm.
bit of history in the business world. And we were about 6 weeks in, and this was a 6 month program. And we
Mhm.
were combing through her business and where she excelled and where she felt she had challenges. And one of her statements to me was, I'm really great at closing the sale once I get in the building,
Mm.
But, and she's a founder. She shouldn't even be getting in the building at this point,
Right?
to be honest with you. But that
Right.
was another day conversation. She's like, but I'm horrible at cold calls and I need to hire people that
Mm.
can set appointments for me and get cold calls. And I'm like, A, I love that awareness
Yes.
because you really shouldn't be doing the cold calling.
Right.
B, who told you you were horrible at cold calls?
Mm. Mm.
And
Yes.
we unlocked, as my 23-year-old daughter says, we unlocked core memory. And
Yes.
it was something that she had stuffed down from when she was 18, 19 years old. And she's my age, she's in her 50s.
Mhm.
So she was 18, 19 in the late 80s, early 90s. And she had worked for a, a trader for
Mm.
and he was pilfering the money that they were making on their sales for his lifestyle, his drug
Mhm.
addiction and all these things. And so he would stand above them while they
Oh.
sat in the pit and said, "You're horrible salespeople.
Oh my
You're not
gosh.
making the calls. You're not doing the sales that I need to. You're not
Yes.
setting the appointments." And the minute she realized that those words did not come from herself,
Yes.
she A, had no problem hiring somebody else to do it, but
Right.
went ahead and created the entire system of how the cold call sales take place. Because I'm like, chances are is you were very good because your
Hmm.
sales fueled a drug guy, like a drug
Exactly.
addict.
Yeah, you wouldn't have been there.
Exactly. He would have
Yeah.
fired you.
I
And
find that
so,
you're like so 100% accurate. I find that it's always like some little voice that they haven't figured out. And I had to go through it myself. I mean, I had a boss who pretty much convinced me like you're not good at talking to donors. You come in, sell
yeah,
the sad cancer story, and then drink your water and be quiet. And over time, what I realized was is this is all about you and your insecurity because I was connecting, but I was being myself. And
yeah,
I'm weird. I'm weird and I'm quirky and I don't make sense, but that made me human and that made them open to my message.
yes,
But boy,
yes,
I had some deconstructing when I left my job to do because what I heard was I should not be in rooms where money and people are because I'm weird and that I make people feel weird. And I'm like, no,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
I make you feel insecure because I'm genuinely connecting. And so then I was
exactly.
like, mm-mm.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was living rent free.
I mean, so many layers to that. Don't be yourself, which is why
Hmm.
people struggle with authenticity
Yes.
online and in their talks and their speeches and the cold calls and all of those things.
Yes.
The you're not good with onboarding customers,
Hmm.
you're not, all of the stories that you have got to get through in order to be a successful entrepreneur,
Yes.
um, beyond just a successful human being at the end
Yeah.
of the day.
Yeah.
And as I said at the beginning, always protecting home plate. Like this
Hmm.
is, we are home base, our bodies itself. And so
Yes.
that's where all decisions have to align with. I even carry my clients when they're doing visualization and intention
Hmm.
setting is really figure out where you want to be, what you want to do. And I would venture to guess you do something very similar to this with a
Yes.
different title on top of it. And then every decision you make moving forward, is
Mhm.
it getting you closer to that vision? Is it getting you
Right.
closer to your intentions? So if you are offered, let's just say 20 grand to do a speaking engagement, that's
Hmm.
fantastic. Is that 20 grand going to get you closer to what your vision is for your
Exactly.
business? Or is the audience going to get you closer to where you
Yes.
want that business to be? And that's
Yes.
everyday life.
Yeah, that's it's so true. And I think sometimes women are, they want to come in and like, or they're like, okay, so when are we gonna get to the estrogen and progesterone? And I'm like, we will. But there's so much we have to like break down, figure out. But for a lot of women, I'm like, what do you want in the next like 5 years? Like we're looking at how you feel, what you're doing, and all that, and they have no clue,
Yeah.
no clue. And for some of it, I mean, it breaks my heart. Some of the women are like, no one's really ever asked me
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
what's next? What do I want? And I'm always like, that is the saddest thing I think I've ever heard
Yeah.
is that no one
Privileged to
ever
be the
asked me.
first to ask you, but I'm
Yeah.
so sorry I'm the first to ask you, right?
Yes,
Uh,
yeah. And I mean it's such a burden and such like, I mean it hurts. It hurts for me because I'm like, well, you know what? I'm going to be the first person then to ask you, what do you want? And
Yeah.
and I love it. I always tell people, I'm like, I've always wanted the weirdest strange. I've always gone against the grain, and I've always had people telling me like, you can't do that. You can't. And I'm always like, why?
Yes.
Why not? And so I'm
Yes.
like, if a weirdo can make it, you can make it. Like, what do you want? There's nothing that's outside the scope of like, you got, and I mean, none of my dreams would have ever come true. I mean, I started 3 years talking about leaving my job before I did it.
Wow.
And,
Wow.
and I tell people all the time, like, that wasn't my family. That wasn't people saying, it was me saying, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You, you have to go work for someone else.
Yeah.
And yeah, and
And
I
then
didn't
you
have, I didn't
develop
come
this
from,
beautiful path for people
yeah.
to, you've duplicated the path to
Yes. And
support.
nobody in my family had done this before. So there
Mhm.
wasn't somebody I could look to and be like, "Well, Uncle so and so." And I thought, "No, just go." And I'm like, "The worst thing that's going to happen is it doesn't pan out, but at least when I'm on my deathbed,
Mhm.
I won't be sad. I won't be like, I wish I tried it."
Yeah.
And maybe who knows what it leads to next. But yeah, I've
Yes.
spent a lot of time with women about, our hormones are kind of our superpower. And I feel sad that men don't have some of what we have because we live on cycles. We function through cycles, and that's a little hidden superpower that men don't get access to.
I love that. I love that. And there are ways to build your life around those. Well, they always say like whatever you got in trouble for is actually something that is a really a genius for that. And it's just
So
that the
true.
world tells us no, it's not. I was the most talkative kid in like the third grade. Like I still got O's on everything on the report card, but I got an
Yes.
N on a needs improvement for settling down. So
Yes.
I'm sure you have
Yes.
similar stories as well.
True. 100%.
And it's the way it's supposed to be. And
Yes.
I love how you brought in that it's something that makes us so incredibly different,
Yes.
and that it's okay if your friends and family do
Hmm.
not understand or support it.
Yes.
And that because that's your role, is that you're
Hmm.
going to be there to support them. And then with
Yes.
your beautiful AI feature and your membership, you're able to not only support them during the sessions, but
Right.
you're there at 11:30 at night when
Yes.
something
Yeah.
comes up.
Yeah,
And
because
I
that's
just
the thing was like when I was really working out a membership is I was like, I'm not going to be up at 3 a.m. I mean, well, maybe if my hormones spike, but I'm not going to get on the computer and talk to you with my bedhead. But I thought, you know what? Some woman is going to be up at 3 a.m.
yeah.
and it's going to be a conversation from work that is just replaying and replaying. And she's already lacking sleep. It's not a good time to make decisions. But what if she had somebody that she could get on? And so I was like, I'm going to make these AI coaches just an extension of me. If you could call me at 3, I would say this to you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and my number one line, I have it written in my journal. It is in my phone, Alexa. I programmed her to say this to me when I wake up. But my number one line I say every day to myself and my clients is, it doesn't have to make sense to exist.
oh,
Hard
that's
stop.
beautiful.
Doesn't have to. If it makes sense to you, done. It does
That is
not have to make sense to anyone else for it to exist.
no, no.
So,
I mean, what a beautiful way to kind of bring things all together, Tracy. As I've said it before we even started this, I feel like we could just go on and on. There's
I
maybe going to
know.
have to be a part two in 6 months or so. So I know we're doing a little podcast exchange, so we can always like
Yes.
reread these notes and jump back into yours and
Yes.
make a whole
Yes.
series out of it. But I love that. I love that you're leaning into the technology of what's happening in the
Mhm.
world. I myself am in developing an AI
Yeah.
feature to help as well. And so like-minded beyond just the name of that,
Yes.
and just finding ways that you can be there at those critical and very vulnerable moments
Hmm.
for other women
Yes.
without having to physically be there for them, but
Yeah.
they get all the part of you that they need anyway. And that
Yes.
is your genius, the what you have to offer and your ability to put your special twist on the support. So Thank you so much for everything you're doing for women. It's so appreciated.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor. It really is. I used to say this as a social worker and it still translates into this business, but the biggest honor ever that you can have is when you sit in front of someone and they tell you their story. Because it's the most vulnerable moment. I mean, I've been at people's deathbeds. I've been there afterwards at funerals. I've helped people plan funerals. And I never forgot the magic of that moment. Like some of you just met me and I'm helping you plan a day that is horrible. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, when somebody opens a little bit of their door and says, see a little bit of me, it's such a huge honor. Yeah, I know when I get to the end of my life, I'm just going to think, what a magical life I've had. I've met so many people
You
and I've
really
learned
did.
so much from so many people. So yeah, it's magical. And you're one of those magical people that I'm obsessed with.
I'm obsessed with you as well. Well, I love all of this. So I always end every podcast episode with the question, and I pre-sent it to you first, so you had a chance to kind of think about what you wanted to share. And that question is, what is one truth you wish women in leadership trusted sooner?
I think going back to my second puberty, because I love talking about it, it feels like, when people use the word like midlife or you get into your 50s, there's this concept of like, now we're looking down the hill and life is a downward. And so maybe even like in your business or in your life, you're thinking, now I have to start thinking this way. And
Hmm.
what I want women to really, really lean into that self-trust with is when we get into the second puberty, your leadership is not done but your leadership is shifting and it's shifting into the most authentic, wholesome, all you truth. And that is your power. And so lean into it. You are not done. And really, probably, I'd say most of us at this phase, we're stepping in to the truest and most authentic, megawatt amazing leader
Yeah.
because we're asking ourselves those vulnerable questions. We're learning from our mistakes and it makes us make better decisions. So I would say lean into that second puberty and get ready to be the best leader you've ever been because you're going to be because you trust yourself.
Oh, that's beautiful. So where can everybody find you?
Yes. So there's a couple ways you can find me. So yes, I have my podcast. That's not very ladylike. That's where I'm a little bit edgier and a little more cussier. So if you like to kind of push the agenda, but I share some really great stories about moments where I pushed against the system and what happened. But it's really about exactly what you said earlier, break those rules. So that's not very ladylike. I'm active on Instagram, so you can always find me there at that hormone girl. And then I have a website, which is just go.thathormonegirl.com/home. And that's where you can just see some of my freebies and some of the other stuff that I get up to. But those are the three main. And then, of course, you'll find my membership on all those platforms. And it's called Speak Up, the Hormone Membership. And it's just teaching women to lean into that emotional, relational, and conversational impact of hormone health and to speak up and be their most authentic self.
Oh, this is beautiful. Thank you. And I fully have to circle back and give you your flowers for you made my trip, you and your mom. You
Oh,
made my
thank
trip
you.
in Austin so beautiful and so wonderful. I had no idea that I would be coming out with so many friendships. So
I
that was
know.
so cool. And you are truly a light worker. And by sharing with the world your wisdom, your experience, your genius, and so freely, coming on this podcast to share it with my community as well. I truly, I see you and I appreciate you so much. So
Oh, thank you. And 100% same friend. So true.
thank you. Thank you. So anybody's interested, check the show notes. All of those links will be provided. Jump on to my Instagram or Tracy's Instagram if you found any value from today to let us know what you thought. We'd love to chat with you. You can see that we both have been, we may not have kissed the Blarney Stone, but we have the gift for gab. Thanks so much, Tracy.
Thank you.